Alright, so let's get starting. Welcome everyone. So today we are going to speak about the Angular schematics and what they can do for us. So first, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Trajan and I'm a software engineer and a Google developer expert for Angular. That means I'm writing a lot of articles about the Angular, so if you want to know a bit more about the topic in terms of architecture and best practices and so on, then feel free to check the blog. It's many interesting articles. Besides that, if you are from Switzerland and you are interested about the frontend, there are two great meetups. One is in Bern, it's called Berner.js. Another one is here in Zurich, it's called Angular Meetup Zurich. So if you are interested, then for sure check it out on the meetup site. Come, it's a great community, great topics, great speakers, so you can learn a lot. Besides that, if you are starting with some Angular project currently, or you want to improve your project or something like this, I created a Angular NGRX material starter project on GitHub, which kind of shows you all the best practices with the newest version. So how to use themes, how to use Angular material, how to use NGRX state management library and stuff like this. So it's kind of nice thing to start with if you are interested in this kind of stuff. And last but not least, if you are on Twitter, you may be interested in Release Butler, which is a Twitter bot which tweets releases and change logs of the popular framework libraries, popular frameworks and libraries of the front end. So you can stay up to date with the releases of stuff like Angular, RxJS, TypeScript, React, Vue, everything. So feel free to check it out. Cool. So let's get started. So what we are going to learn today. So first of all, please let me know who of you are actually using Angular in your day-to-day job. Okay, so many, cool. How many of you are using Angular project with Angular CLI? Okay, many. And last question, how many of you are actually using Angular schematics which are provided from CLI or the custom ones? Okay. So not so many. So the point is that this presentation is kind of two parts. One part is more about how we can leverage the Angular schematics which are provided out of the box by Angular CLI, and the second part is more about how we can create our own custom schematics. And I think based on audience, it would make more sense to focus mostly on how we can use what is provided out of the box, and then if we have some time, we can also start to create something custom. So we'll see. So anyway, what we are going to learn. So we will speak about what are Angular schematics and what are the possible benefits of using them, and show this with some real-world examples in a project. After that, we will get more in depth into how we can use schematics, how we can pass different options to them, maybe how to set some defaults and stuff like this. Then we will probably show how we can create our own custom schematics and how we can use our own custom schematics in the Angular CLI projects, because there is some integration steps involved. All right, and how are we going to learn all these things? Well, with the live coding. So let's get started. So first of all, we have here, I already prepared some very small Angular CLI workspace. So it's empty. That means in Angular JSON, we see here is an empty projects object, and there is no default project. So how we can get such a workspace when we want to start a new Angular project is actually also using schematics. So what we would normally do is say ng new some project, and this would and we would say create application equals false, and this will create us this kind of workspace. But we are not going to do this right now, because as we heard in the keynote, installing npm can cause planes to crash and maybe the cinema would collapse. So I pre-install all the npm dependencies at home. I took all the risk, so now we don't have to do this, luckily. So that's kind of cool. So we can already enter the workspace. We don't want to risk anything. So now we have this empty workspace, so that's not very useful. So first thing we need is to actually create some Angular application in this workspace. So how we can do this is, again, using schematics. So what we can say is ng generate, and we don't have to write generate because, we want to be efficient. So actually there is an alias for that. So we can just say ng, and then we say application, and we will call it some app. And And we will say we want it with routing, and we want to skip install because we already pre-installed the npm, and we want to use not CSS but SCSS, so the SAS. So we say style SCSS. And this is already basically using Angular schematics in practice. So instead of like having to go to some documentation website or like to some starter project or anything like this, we don't have to do this. We don't have to copy paste the code. We don't have to check like what is the newest in some outdated wiki. The schematics will generate us a project with like all the setup. So as we can see here now in the output, the schematic generated in projects folder, the some app, and there is like all the files with some basic structure. So let's have a look. So now, first of all, let's collapse this. So in our Angular JSON file, we see that now we have two projects in our workspace. One is the application itself. The second one is the end-to-end test. And we also see that we have now this default project, which is the application itself. And besides that, we can see that what was generated here is this project, and it came like with the compiler config, with the linting config, with the test setup. We even got like some application module, application component, all these things out of the box. So we don't need to check it out how to do this. We get it out of the box. So now let's start this application in a other tab. So we say npm start. And this will like compile our application and open in a browser. But let's show how we can use schematics in the meantime to generate like some nice application architecture. Okay, we have an empty application, but let's say we need to implement like some features, and like the best practices is to like separate features into like some lazy loaded modules and add there some components and services. And this kind of sounds like a lot, but actually we don't really have to type that much because we again can use schematics. So let's have a look. So let's go into workspace, and now let's say we want to ng generate module, and we want it with routing, and we want to call it like feature, the feature module. And then again, schematics will generate us in our projects in SumUp, in SourceUp, in the feature folder, we will get the feature module. So now let's add some component to that module. So let's say ng generate C as a component, and in the path of feature, because it belongs to that module, we will say some view. And this will generate us this some view component. And as we can see, it generated like the component file itself, the test stub, the template styles, and it even added this component into feature module declaration so we can use it out of the box. And this again, those are the things we don't have to type, we don't have to know, and we know they are correct. So let's now generate a service, ng generate as a service, and again in this feature module, and we will call it like some, because then it will be called like some service. Okay. So this was generated. So let's have a look into our application. So now we see there is like this feature folder, and it has feature module and even feature routing module with all the dependencies already imported. So we don't have to read the docs. We don't need to know how to exactly set these things up. We see there is a component, and that this component was already provided in declaration, so we can use it in a template. Cool. So we have this. So let's now put these things together. So we want this to be a lazy loaded module. So in the routes of this module, we have to say it like for the empty path, we want to show this this view component. So we'll say, sorry, some view component. Cool. And let's say that in the main application, we want to load this module as a lazy loaded module, because it's like enables us to make a nice clean architecture. So we go to app routing module and we add another route. And we'll say path feature. And for the feature, we want to load children. So that's like for this lazy loading. And we'll say it's in the feature/feature module, and inside of that module it's a feature module class. Okay, now we need some button to actually route to this, so let's add it to app component. Let's remove some generated stuff which we don't really need, and this, and let's add here a button which is a router link, and one is like empty which goes home, and another one is like going to feature. All right. So now let's have a look at the bundling process. Okay, this seems to be working. So let's go to browser and open our application. And what we see here is that we have this application and we have like home and feature, and now we said like we want this lazy loaded feature, so lazy loaded module. That means like we have this nice clean architecture. So because it's loaded lazily, like as you can see now here in the network tab, that means if we have many features and they are loaded lazily, that our startup time is really fast and our application is lean. Another like huge benefits of using these lazy loaded modules is that all the code in that module is guaranteed to have like zero influence on any other module. So that's already like kind of nice architecture out of the box. And we got this like in a couple of minutes using this schematic, so we didn't really need to read the docs or anything like this. So and for that we have been using basically these schematics which are provided out of the box. So what do we actually get out of the box? So to check that, we can use this another command which is called schematics, and here we can say list schematics. And this will actually list the schematics which are like really the most default ones which are used to generate schematics projects. So we want to see the schematics which we used in Angular project, we have to say in which package they are. So we can say here is, we know that they are in schematics/Angular and the colon. And now, okay, there is a typo, schema. All right, and now we see that those is the list of the schematics available in Angular CLI out of the box. So again, we don't have to go even like to documentation. If we remember this one command, we see, yeah, we can generate the module, the component, the service, what we did, but even stuff like whole application shell or like support for service workers and something like that. So that's kind of cool. And the thing to notice is that this command, it contains kind of like two parts. One is like the name of the package, so that's this schematic/Angular, and then there we have this separator like this colon, and after that will come the name of the particular schematic later when we want to execute it. So there could be like a component or like a service or something like this. So now those are available out of the box, but we know that in like the Angular universe there are like many cool third-party libraries like, let's say, Angular Material, which gives us like very nice material styled components, or let's say like state management library like NGRX, which also has like concepts like store or like effects and some stuff like that. So the question now is, do they also provide their schematics? And the answer is yes. So now let me ask you, who of you ever used Angular Material Component Library in your project? Okay, so some. So those of you who did probably still remember that actually setting this up is not so simple. There are maybe 4 or 5 additional steps you have to do besides doing like npm install to actually make this run. So you need to like import the fonts in the index HTML, and maybe then you have to include like a default theme, or you have to define your own custom theme. Then maybe you need to install like some special library to support gestures and all these kind of things. And again, these are the things you cannot really know like out of the box because they're very special, so you would have to read the docs. But there is this special schematics called like ng-add. So instead of installing Angular Material, what we can do is to ng-add it. So let's see what would happen if we want to add it to our workspace. So we say ng-add, and we say add Angular/material. Oh. Good. So, and what this does is actually it downloads the package like behind the scenes, so we already have it pre-installed, and runs this ng-add schematic, which is kind of the same as the component or service, but it's the one which is special one to do like to add stuff. And as we can see, it's already asking us stuff. So this feature is called like prompts, and it's very cool so that we don't need to remember the options. Like we don't have to say like, okay, I want -- theme, indigo, purple, but it can even ask us and give us the list of options. So let's say we want a custom theme, and do we want to install Hammer.js? Not really. We don't support the touch devices, and we do want animations. And now, okay, there was all the questions, so now it will do its magic, so it will install like some additional things it needs and update a couple of files. And again, we didn't really need to know about this. We run one command, answer three questions, and all this setup is automated for us. So let's see what happens here. So soon in the output, we see these three update statements. So it updated the index HTML, styles, SCSS, and app modules. So let's have a look at that. So if we go here in our app and we look into index, we see that here 2 font links were added for the correct fonts which are needed. So we don't have to read about this. Now, if we look into the app module, we see that the browser animations module was added for us. And if you look in the main global style SCSS, that there is like this big setup of a custom theme, which again, we can just like change the color from indigo to yellow and or whatever is our corporate color, and we are good to go. So it's kind of like, again, out of the box, also with all these comments which like explain how to do these things. So we have it. Let's have a look at our application. Now we see that, okay, didn't change much, like the font changed because it was included, but like we don't use many of these material components yet. So what we can do now is to list schematics, but of this new package we included right now. So not schematics/Angular, but Angular material. So we say here is Angular material. And what we're going to see is these new schematics which are now additionally available because we installed this package. So we see what we use it is this ng-add just to install it, but besides that what we can generate is stuff like address form, dashboard, navigation, table, or tree. So let's say we want to add the navigation to our application because we are building like this skeleton for feature and so. So what we can say now is ng-generate, but because it's not in the default package, we have to specify the package, and the package is Angular/material, and now we separate it with the colon, so it's like the package and the schematic, and we say like now, and we will call it main navigation. Okay, it's typo, doesn't really matter, it can have a weird name. Anyway, so and now we generated like this navigation component, and we also see that we updated the app module. So let's have a look. So now if you look into the app module, we see that our component was added to declaration, so we can use it in our templates automatically. And the component comes already like with like this scaffolded template. So let's change our application to use this navigation instead of this like simple one which we've written before. So we know we don't have link 1, but we have home, and we have a feature. And we don't have the link 3, and this is not a ref, but it's a router link, and then we have another router link, which goes to feature. And then here it even says like, it's a very helpful comment like add content here. Okay, I will do that. So it's a router outlet because we want to route there. And let's add also like buttons to the toolbar. So let's put here button, and we say it's a matte raised button, and it has a color which is accent, and it's a router link of the accent, of the empty because it's home, and we say it's home, and another one goes to feature, and we say it goes to feature. And now the only thing which is left to do is to remove this old implementation because we don't need it anymore. And we can use this app main navigation instead. So let's see if this worked. Okay, this looks good. And now if you look, we got like already this navigation, we got the side menu, we can go to different, and it's even responsive, so if I zoom out, like the menu is already there. So again, like we got a lot of working like without typing much. And now, okay, this is kind of like, okay, this is Angular material, this is some navigation, but let's imagine the situation that like you work in a big organization, you have multiple teams with like tens of developers, and you have like your own organization like component framework. And now instead of like having like some 3 pages which are partially outdated in some wiki and maybe like some outdated readme MD or stuff like this. What you can provide your developers with is like this seamless experience which follows exactly like one-to-one, which is like the default Angular CLI experience, so nothing custom, where they can just, okay, I need to do a new project in my organization for like some special project, whatever. So, okay, I create the project with a CLI because I'm an Angular developer, I know how to do that. And then I say, okay, ng add my organization UX framework. And this will do all the setup and import all the correct things. And it can even like scaffold like some layout for me, or it can even like offer me, okay, does it has to be a mobile or like a desktop app or whatever. And this can all be automated. Another such example could be, okay, we have organization, we want to have a data access library. So then what we can do is, okay, ng add my organization data access. It can ask us, okay, is it a REST resource? What is the name? Where is the API endpoint? Is it a WebSocket resource? Is it like some socket, just TCP IP? And it can ask us stuff, and it can scaffold us some services, or we can then additionally generate like some other resource services and stuff like this. So I hope you see that this can be like pretty powerful thing, and it can like empower people in your organization. Another huge benefit of this could be that if you are generating this code for your organization, you can do, what you can achieve is that you spread like the best practices. So let's say you are generating a resource service and you can already include like error handling in it. So this is how we handle errors, and then people can just like see this example pattern and just like then extend it and add stuff to it and just generate multiple resources and stuff like this. So this is like pretty powerful because yeah, if you are dealing like with many developers or like many teams and like they has only like 8 hours, so yeah, you can have some 1-to-1 or like 1 to 10 time, but still if you can just like out of the box provide like this desired experience and like the code which you are like aiming for in your organization, this can be very useful. So I really hope that you see like the value in the schematic. And now let's enter the second part where we will show how we will create like our own custom ones. So, and to do that, we will exit this workspace. And as we said before, what we can do is there is this schematics command, and let's list them again. So, and the schematics which are provided by default are actually to generate the schematic project itself, and we will use the blank one because that's the simplest. So what we can say now is schematics blank, and we will call it like hello because we want to generate like some hello component as an example. And this will generate us, it's similar to doing like ng-new for Angular project, but this is like for a schematic project. So again, it creates us the whole project with the test setup, with the TypeScript build setup, with some stub empty schematic which we can extend. So that's kind of cool. So we have it, we even did like small npm install and nothing bad happened, so we are lucky somehow. Anyway, so here we have the hello, and as you can see, this is like a standard like Node project, nothing really special. We have a package JSON, and here we have a build, and what we want to do is, because it's a TypeScript, so we want to kind of keep rebuilding this all the time, so we add like build watch for us, which will run in the background. And one more thing which I forgot, what we have to do is to go into that workspace, and we should install a schematics/Angular because it contains a couple of very useful helpers which can save us like some own implementation which we will use. Alright, so we have this. Let's go now to hello and start the TypeScript compilation. So as we will change our schematic code, it will like always be actual. So we do npm run build watch. Yeah. So and let's see if this works. Okay, starting compilation, found 0 errors. Okay, it's watching, so that's cool. So now we can start doing things. So first of all, what makes a schematic npm package special is that here is this schematics property in a package JSON which points to source collection JSON file. So let's have a look. So and in this file, that's basically kind of like the heart of the schematics, which contains all the definitions of all the available schematics. So if we compare this to the previous one which were used, like these default ones, here we would see the definition for component, module, service, and so on. And because this is a new project, there is only one, and it's called hello. And we see here is like some reference of a factory function where it goes into hello, and index.ts, and that's like the actual implementation of schematic. So let's make it here a bit more space and talk a little bit about these main concepts of what actually schematic is. So first of all, schematic is a factory function which receives some options. So option can be stuff like what we used before, like skip install or routing or stylized CSS or something like this, and gives us back this parameterized schematic rule. And the rule is actually this part here, which does the actual change, so generates file, changes file, and so on. And a rule accepts the tree and the context, and this tree is very interesting because it represents like a virtual representation of the files of that particular project where we are running it. And this has a couple of very good properties. So first of all, if we have a schematic and we try to transform our project and anything goes wrong, like any kind of error, we will not write these changes into our file system. So that's kind of what we want, because we only want to have like a successful transformation. Another huge benefit of having this virtual tree is that it gives us a feature like dry run out of the box. So we can preview what kind of changes will our like command have when we run it, and we don't really have to like commit it. So we don't have to then git revert or anything like this. We can preview, okay, did we achieved what we really wanted? Okay, yes, then we do it for real and we remove the dry run. Another huge advantage is that because it's a virtual tree, it simplifies testing dramatically. So the thing is, when we want to test schematics, we can in memory spin up like a new Angular workspace like in less than a second, because it's not doing any IO operation, it's not writing to disk at all. So all the tests like are happening against this virtual file tree. So that's also very cool. So now we know a bit about these concepts. So there is also context. Context has stuff like a logger, or if we want to like run some subtasks, so if we want to do like npm install some additional package, we can do that with the context, but we will not do this right now. So how can we actually make stuff happen? Because if we would run this right now, it would say, okay, nothing to do, like you are just returning back the tree. So let's say we want to actually achieve something. So we have to change the tree, and tree has a create method, and this create method accepts like the path and the content. So let's do that. Let's generate a hello.js, and with the simple content of console log hello world. Okay, let's put the semicolons. So we have a very simple schematic. So how can we try this? We have to go to console and run it with the schematics command, because we are not in the Angular CLI workspace but outside, so we cannot do ng generate yet. We have to say schematics, and now what is the package? It's the current package, so it's the current folder, so it's a relative path, so we just say dot, and the name of the schematic itself after colon is hello. So what's going to happen? We see create hello.js, but if you look in the workspace, nothing was generated. So the reason for this is that schematics run out of the box if we put a relative path there, which is this dot, in a debug mode. So to actually make the changes, we have to say debug equals false. So this is normally not the case. That's only when we are developing it and using this relative path. If we would have it like as an npm package, it would just work. So if we do this, we see now again the hello.js was created, and now we see it's even here. So this is, we already like created like a very first simple file, which is a JavaScript file. So now let's say we don't want to say like hello world, but we want to say like hello Vox Days conference or something like this. So how can we parameterize this? Or we want to say hello John or hello Thomas, whatever. So as we can see, the schematic factory accepts these options. So what we can say is we want to destructure the name out of the options object, and we want to use this name in our string, so you say name. So now we have to delete this file because it was generated already, and now if we say hello but we say minus minus name, and we'll say Vox Days and run this, you'll see the file was created again, And if we look in the content, there is hello workspaces. So this is how we can pass in any option. And out of the box, actually, you can literally pass any flag, and this will be available. But this doesn't scale so well because, okay, so first of all, we don't know what flags are supported. There is like no validation. So this would not be so nice. So how we can improve this is that we can define a schema. Yes. So first one is like an interface for the TypeScript. So we can export interface schema, and here say like name, which is a string, and we can use this schema in here. So we can say here schema. Well, it doesn't offer me the import, so I import it by hand. Sometimes this doesn't work. So from the local schema file, we want to import schema and use it as a type of the option. And now if you do here a dot, we will see that there is a name property. So okay, already in the code we have the type checking, but this doesn't help us like with the command line itself. So to do that, we have to add additional file, which is called schema.json, where we can specify the options for the command line. And that's a bit more writing, so I will just copy it because we have a very little time actually for this whole topic. So let's select this whole thing and put it here and remove this. So we have a schema.json. So first field is like schema itself, which gives us like some code completion in JSON, which we'll see later, which is very cool. And then we see, okay, the ID is hello schema, title, whatever. But the most important is these properties here. And the property is name, and we say the type of that property has to be string. It has this description, so the name of the person we want to greet. And instead of saying minus name, we want it to be like a positional parameter. So just like the first string we passed to our CLI, we want it to be the name, and this is what we are saying here. So from the argument list, the first argument, and also that is required. So the last thing is we have to reference it also in collection. So in here we will see this code completion. So if I just do code completion in the JSON, I get, okay, like schema, cool, I don't have to remember this. And I say hello/schema.json. Cool. So we have all this. So let's now see how our situation changed. So first of all, let's try to pass something which is like not correct. So like name A, let's say. What's going to happen? And the schematic input does not validate against the schema. So that's kind of cool, which like validates it for us, so we know we didn't do any mistake, that we are really passing all the options we are thinking we are passing. So that's kind of nice. So second of all, we don't have to specify the flag at all anymore because it's the positional, and this will fail, and this is correct because the file already exists. So there is actually this thing called like force flag, which will override the file, but not if we are creating it imperatively as of now, but only later when we will use templates. So for now, we have to actually delete the file and rerun this again. So we don't actually need the force now. And now it worked exactly. So if we have a look, now again it's hello workspace, but now we have like that the CLI input is validated. So how can we make this even better? If you remember, we saw at the Angular material that it was asking us question for the parameters we didn't provide like in the command line. So how can we achieve this? So it's actually very simple. All we have to do is add here one more property, which is called xPrompt. And here we pass in a question, who do we want to greet? All right. Is it? No, it's all right. It's all right. Thank you. But anyway, so let's now call this, but don't pass in any name. And we see we didn't pass in the option, but the option has a prompt, so we get a question. So we can say workspaces. And yeah, of course, I keep forgetting to delete the file. Soon we will have templates, then we can just force it and it will not be a problem anymore. So okay, don't have time. All right. And we see hello boxed. Cool. So this is like kind of this basic thing, and the options can be like anything. Can be strings, can be booleans, can be list of items, can be even enums. So it's like only like 3 valid values, and it will even provide us with the choice. So that's kind of amazing and can really provide a very nice developer experience. Again, like you don't need to read the documentation about the schematics because it will just ask you. So it's again very like nice, and it fits into that flow that save time and be efficient. Cool, so we have this, but as we saw before, like this force flag is not working, and like we are using just like some extremely basic like JavaScript string templating, so this is also not something very nice, and luckily it supports like a proper templating with some advanced features. So let's make this work. So first of all, we have to create a files folder. And why files, why not templates? Well, there is a reason for that. Out of the box, for the TypeScript compiler, there is exclude files. So if we are creating TypeScript templates, we actually don't want to compile them. We want them just to be templates, so they have to be excluded. So this is why it's called files. And now, inside of that files folder, let's create a template folder, which will be called like hello minus, and now underscore underscore name at dasherize underscore underscore. So what is going there? Like hello minus, that's just like normal string. Okay, so this every folder will start with hello minus, and then the underscore underscore is the delimiter for the variable name. So we know we are passing in the name option, so we can actually use it in the folder name. And then this add dasherize, that's kind of like the helper function. So let's say we put in like this voxed days with a space in between, but that doesn't really make sense for the folder name. So we want to transform that string with the helper so that it has dashes in it. So cool, we can have this. Now inside of that folder, we want to create a file which will be again hello minus underscore underscore name at dasherize underscore underscore dot component dot ts. So we want to create like some very basic Angular component. All right, so what we know in Angular component, we have to import the component decorator from Angular/core, and then we have to use it. So we say add component, and in the component decorator, every component needs a selector. So this is, now we are writing like this template, yeah? And the selector will start with hello, and now we want to make the component so it has the name as the name parameter. So we need to like write the name option into the template, and to do that, we need to do angle brackets %equals name and close it again with the %angle brackets. But again, name can have a space in it and the selector can't. So we also have to use dasherize. Exactly, and here we call it actually as a function. Okay, now every component needs a template, and template can be something very simple like h1 hello name, and this name that's nothing to do with template, is like normal Angular. So we have to provide the name property on the component, and now the class, and the class name is hello, and again we want to use a name. So we say name, but now again we don't want it with a dash because it's a class name, so we can use a classify helper. So we have classify hello classify, all right, component, and inside of that component we have to use a variable which we use then in the template, so name, and we want to write the name, so again like as a string. So we just say name, and here we don't want to adjust it, we want to just use it as it is. Alright, so we have this template, but in our code we are still like just doing this imperative thing. So how can we actually use template? So the thing is, we can get rid of this, and we have to first get hold of the template. So to get hold of the template, we say source template, and I call it source because the schematics calls it source, and there is a URL function, and we have to import it, and we don't remember, but it's kind of obvious, like Angular dev kit schematics. So cool. Now we need a string of the where it is, so we know it's in files, and now we got hold of the template. Now we need a way to pass our options into the template, so we have to declare source parameterized template, and we know that this is done with the apply function. And again, from where? From schematics. And we'll look what does it need. So it needs a source. So we have already the template source, and it accepts the rules, list of rules. So, and the funny thing is, like, so this whole thing is a rule, and also like we can have like a nested rule. So you can see you can like compose these things. And the rule to parameterize the template is called template. Not surprisingly, again from schematics. And what does it need? It's options, and we kind of have options. So let's spread them in. And what we are also using in our templates are those helper functions, and they are not available like out of the box. We actually have them, we have to pass them in. So we have to import them quickly. So we say strings from at Angular devkit core exactly, and we have to pass them in so we can have this dash rise and classify and so on. All right, sorry, no, strings. Exactly. And the last thing, so now we have the parameterized template, but we still have to apply it to the tree. So and there is another rule for that, it's called merge with, and we say we have a source, our source is a parameterized template, and now if you look at this merge with, if you see it returns the rule. And this is also a rule, so we know that a rule actually can be called with the tree and a context. And this actually then can go away later, but so that the compiler doesn't complain that we are not using the tree, so we will use it. So let's have a look. Compilation is successful, so let's try this out. So let's put in some name, let's say Voxed days, but with a space. And now we can start using the force flag because we already are using the templates. And we created a folder, Hello Vox Days, and inside we created the Hello Vox Days component. So let's have a look at the implementation. And as we can see, okay, it looks kind of okay. And we see that the same variable, the name was used as in the dash rise form for the selector, and in the classify form for like the class, and in the like natural form for the name. So this will work very nicely. Cool. So let's say we want to run this from our Angular CLI workspace. So normally we would like build this, publish it to npm, and then install it like npm install my organization schematics. But we can also do it relatively, also like for testing purposes. So let's go to our Angular workspace, which we were working before, and let's say ng generate. And now we have to specify the package, but the package is local, so we have to provide in the path. So it's in the hello source collection JSON, and the name of the schematic is hello. And let's start with help. So actually, when we use ng generate, we can say help, and this will show us like our argument here that we are supporting the name, so the name of the person we want to greet. So it's another cool way if we have like many options and booleans and lists and whatever, where we can show our users like, okay, this is how we use this. So again, like they don't have to go somewhere and read something outdated. They can have it all there fresh in the code. So that's very nice. So now let's actually run it for real. So we say Voxed days, and we say dry run false because it's a relative path, so we still have to like set this, and we say force because maybe we'll regenerate later. And now we see this was created. Oh, I made the name, I didn't put here a space probably. Okay, that's better. We don't want the name with the dry run in the folder. So let's have a look. So this is kind of cool. So here is dry run. Let's kill this. That's not alright. So here we have it, but it's kind of like in the root of the workspace, and it doesn't really make sense because the project is in the projects as a source. So how can we integrate this? And it is possible, and we will basically, we don't have much time, so we will kind of copy paste the implementation. It involves a couple of steps. So we have the tree, and tree knows about all the files. So because of that, we actually can read Angular JSON from the tree and look for the default project. We can also pass in a project flag, so we can specify which project we want to generate in if we have multiple projects. So, but I cannot write this by hand because we don't have time, so I'll just copy the whole thing. And then we will go through the changes. So we had this, and basically what we are changing is mostly the middle part where we introduce like where we want to move the file. So let's just replace this and have a quick look. So what we do is we read the Angular JSON, and if we don't get Angular JSON, we just throw exception because this should only work with Angular CLI, and then we parse it because we get the buffer, so we want actually a normal object, and we check, did we pass the option for project, and if not, we use the default one. And then we get the project itself, it has some configuration in it, and we can use that configuration to parse the name and build the default path of the project, and that gives us like already correct name and correct path, so that like if the name contains the folders, it will be removed and it's in the correct project. And basically we override the name which we got into the template, and we move the file to where it should be. So once we have this, let's remove this. This is not necessary. So we have this. Now what we have to also do is here add the project, what we are supporting now, it's an optional string. And what we also have to add into our schema is a, well, we don't have to, but we can, project, and we will see the code completion. So we say it's of type string, and the description is the Angular CLI project. So that's kind of cool. Now let's have a quick look at the compilation. Looks good. So, and what happens when we run this now? And let's make it even better. We want to generate it into the feature, as we have this lazy loaded feature in the beginning, if you remember. So we say feature slash the name, and the name has even a space in it. And let's hope this works. And looks kind of cool. So as you can see, we created the file in the project. Oh, in the project. Okay. Now I'm copying the output. That's not what I want. Anyway, so project sum up source app feature hello workspaces and hello workspaces component. So let's integrate it, and then we are kind of done. So let's go to the workspace, and this is the old one. Let's delete that. And here we see that in project sum up source app feature is a correct folder with the correct component. So what is now left to do is to provide as a declaration. So that's hello workspaces component, so that we can use it in our template and use it in our template. So let's add it here and say hello workspaces. And now, does this work? Seems all right. And as we can see, we are using our custom schematics to generate a component in the application which is generated with the schematics. So that's kind of it. So let's recapitulate. So what did we learn today? We see how we can generate Angular workspace where we can have multiple applications, libraries, end-to-end test project, and so on. How we can generate the whole applications and like some sub-entities of applications like components, services, modules, how we can scaffold this, how we can use third-party libraries and their schematics to automate the setup process, and how to generate their own like entities which are provided out of the box. And we spoke about the potential use cases about the schematics. We didn't really have time for the other great stuff. Then we saw how we can use schematic CLI to generate the schematic project, how to run them. We spoke about like the concepts like a rule or the tree and options, and how we can implement simple schematics with the template support and pass the options in. And after that, the last step was that we show how we can actually integrate it in the Angular CLI project so that it respects like the overall structure and generates the file in the correct space. So useful resources. I hope that the presentation will be like included either in the YouTube video or like somewhere in the conference page, so you can check. Official Angular CLI docs are very good and describe all the commands in very big detail. Besides that, there is a upcoming schematics documentation, official one. There is a pull request open which should be merged soon into the official like Angular repo, so it will be part of the official documentation. Besides that, you can check a GitHub repo. I created a library called Angular extension model, which uses ng-add and also like generates the model service as an example how you can integrate into your own library. Also, I wrote a schematics productivity blog post with many tips about these defaults where we don't have a time, and there is a upcoming in-depth guide about this, what we spoke about today, but like really in detail, like a long guide, 20 minutes read. Cool. So if you want to get in touch, then you can install me in your console, so mpx Thomas Trajan, and you will get basically an output with all the social links. And if your console is good, then you can even click on it without needing to copy it. So that depends how cool your console is. So feel free to install me mpx Thomas Trajan. Besides that, if you are interested in topic and you are working for an organization which could use this, as many teams and like many developers and could really benefit from this, get in touch and we can maybe do some workshop or something if it would make sense for you. And I guess the time is out, so thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.